The California missions. In 1768, King Carlos III of Spain sent soldiers to the southern and northern ends of Alta California. He sent Franciscan friars with the soldiers to found missions and convert the American Indians to Christianity. King Carlos III saw the founding of the missions as an important first step in turning Alta California into a Spanish colony. He wanted the missionaries to change the American Indians because he knew the Indians spoke Spanish and considered themselves people of Spain. Some of the explorers traveled by sea up the coast and some traveled overland from Baja California. The local Indians were initially suspicious of the friars. The first year of mission in Alta California, not a single Indian converted to Christianity. The friars did not lose hope. They had soldiers, weapons, and the Spanish Empire on their side. It was only a matter of time before they began to change the lives and the cultures of the Indians forever. Coast Miwok and Pomo. The Coast Miwok lived on the peninsula across from San Francisco. The Pomo lived farther north. The lifestyle of the two tribes were very similar. They wore the same kind of cloaks made out of the natural materials. They built the same kind of earth-covered houses. They gathered and hunted the same kind of food at the same time of year. They lived more or less peacefully together before the arrival of the Spanish. Hunters and gatherers. Before we get to that though, we have to clean the screen. Before the Spanish arrived and introduced farming, the Pomo and Coast Miwok were hunters and gatherers. They treated the countryside as a huge natural farm. They did not grow crops or raise animals. Instead, they used the plants, animals, and sea life that existed in the wild. They gathered piñon nuts in the mountains, they hunted deer in the forest, they fished for salmon in the river, and they collected mussel and oysters from the ocean. In the fall and winter, they dug for mushrooms. In the spring, they gathered root, and in the summer, they ate greens and berries. The Indians used the land without hurting it so it could support them forever. Is called El Camino Real, meaning the Royal Road. Mission San Francisco Solano is the last mission on the northern end of El Camino Real. By 1819, Fray Jose Altimira had sailed from Spain to Alta California. He was young, ambitious, and impatient for glory. He thought he would be more important than the great friar and the mission founder, Fray Serra. On July 4, 1823, Fray Altimira founded the 21st and last California mission. He named it San Francisco Solano and built it in the Valley of the Moon. In the vine-covered hills of Sonoma, California, there is a place called the Valley of the Moon. For thousands of years before the arrival of the Europeans, the American Indians who lived in the valley watched the path of the winter moon as it glowed and vanished 7 times behind the black peaks of 7 mountains before rising into the night sky. On August 25, 1823, Fray Altimira and a small group of neophyte laborers began to build Mission San Francisco Solano at Sonoma. San Francisco Solano is the city of Sonoma facing a corner on the historic Sonoma Pueblo Plaza. In fact, the city actually grew up because of the mission. Today, after restoration, a small chapel built on the site of the original wood chapel and the monastery, or Padres Wings. The mission's general design consisted of long buildings built in the same shape of a square. This is called a quadrangle. A church was built in one corner of the quadrangle, and residence, workshops, and kitchens and storage areas completed the square shape. Surrounding this, they built a long wooden sculpture plastered inside and out with whitewashed mud to serve as living quarters for the neophytes. Beside this, they planted fields of crops and orchards. There was also grazing land for their livestock. In front of the chapel is the second bell used in mission days. The first bell has never been found. This bell has a Spanish-style top, even though it was made in Mexico. Once a year, the blessing of the grapes takes place in front of the bell. The Spanish Californians like to build with adobe because it stays cool in the summer and warm in the winter. Unlike wood, however, it needs to be shaped into bricks and hardened by the sun or in an oven. For the soldiers, they built series of palisadas on poles, tied them together with cowhide, coated with mud, and thatched with tule, a type of reed. For the friars, they built adobe house roofed with tiles. Adobe is sun-dried brick made from mud and straw.